To talk about MOOCs, I'm going to use Stephen Downes' terms of XMOOCs and CMOOCs. XMOOCs, which include Coursera and Udacity, have become very popular in the mainstream media. CMOOCs, or connectivist MOOCs, although they came earlier, are not as widely known. The structure of an XMOOC reflects that of a university lecture course. There's a focus on a singular content area, one instructor, a beginning and an end date, a certain number of credits, and a department in which the course can be placed. The learning goals, content, and assessment for each student are also identical. This of course creates a problem. As the number of students grows, the amount of contact they can have with a content expert diminishes. The largest MOOCs are really content delivery systems, with multiple choice questions interspersed and a discussion board attached. The structure of a CMOOC is entirely different, much more decentralized. The instructor or instructors provide some content, usually via RSS, but everyone else contributes as well, including the students. There is no individual path to guide students through the content, and therefore the content and experience of each student depends on their learning goals. If the courses are open, online, and free, then they can have any structure. The form can depend on the content, learning goals, and the students themselves. For example, we could have a whole course on creating historical scenarios in the game Civilization IV. Students would have to do research on their particular area and time, including religion, power relationships, technology, and resources. Learners would also need to master the basics of XML and some Python as well. At the end of the course, students would play each other's simulations. They could then reflect on the varying historical outcomes using their readings as a basis. Computer games are only one example. Another framework could be using an ARG that guides learners through a range of content, problems, and potential solutions. Students can join communities with active projects in the real world as well. Open source projects and online communities for social action and change are all potential courses. One of the key advantages foreign languages have is the number of content experts. We have literally millions of native speakers from around the world. They can provide practice to students not available in the traditional classroom, and they can assess if a student has demonstrated mastery. Because each language learner is also a native speaker, language learners can also benefit from a natural partnership with a single or small group of learners where each individual is both language novice and language expert. While certification of skills is difficult in many fields, standard assessments such as the ACTFL OPI and ILR scale from the U.S. State Department are widely accepted and have been used by STAMP and others as a model for creating relatively inexpensive online assessment. Another advantage of making a foreign language MOOC is that I already have a website designed to connect language learners looking to connect with native speakers for a mutual exchange. The site already numbers around 100,000 users, with around 100 more being added each day. These users are already accustomed to meeting via Skype to practice their language. To create a MOOC around this community, all I would need is the content. And even here I wouldn't be starting from scratch, using materials from Corel at the University of Texas, the BBC, and others. To start then, the course will consist of language learners from one language pair. For example, Spanish speakers learning English and English speakers learning Spanish. I will then need to create lessons using the open education resources mentioned before to create writing, reading, listening, and speaking activities. The format of the activities for the MOOC would mirror that of a small foreign language seminar, although instead of working with a partner in class on a given activity, they'd be working with a native speaker. Traditional classes already do many of their comprehension activities online. We provide the students with some background, vocabulary, and reading strategies, followed by some text or some audio, and then we may ask them to complete a few activities at the end, depending on their level, to compare, summarize, or perhaps a detailed analysis. By making use of the partners via the MOOC, we could then have students use the text as a starting point for a broader discussion, or a possible critique of the description, topic, or viewpoint of the original content. The format of a writing lesson would also be similar to that of a small seminar course. Students would be given a topic on which they could brainstorm, provide a first draft, there would be a peer review process, a second draft, and finally an assessment. Students without access to a traditional course would have to rely on feedback from the native speaker and a rubric, instead of that of a professional instructor. Lessons with a focus on oral production will most closely mimic those of our daily classrooms. A communicative goal would be described to the students. We would practice any new vocabulary and grammar necessary for the activity. A model of the activity is given. Students then complete the activity with a partner, often in some form of role play. Finally, there's some kind of assessment, in this case completed by the native speaker, assessing whether the students are now capable of completing the task in the native country. Having a course be entirely online and open can provide real tangible benefits to our students, and we should structure these courses to take advantage of these benefits. In the case of foreign languages, this means structuring the course to maximize the amount of contact students have with a native speaker. By doing so, the amount of time a student spends speaking in a semester could rise exponentially. Because students are